Hey everyone, Dom here. So glad that you are here, and I'm really stoked to be able to welcome this guy in, Aaron Biebert. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Excited to, be here and talk about VIDA Voices.
Yeah.
This is going to be fun.
For sure. And for those of you that are watching at home, Aaron and I have known each other for quite a long time.
Like 6 years or something
yeah,
like that?
yeah, seems
Way
like.
back, like Applebee's days or community manager hangout days.
Oh my word. I think one of the first times that I actually came to Milwaukee, I hung out with you in a different studio. We did, like a 24-hour broadcast about community management.
Sleeping
stuff.
on the floor.
Oh yeah.
That was fun. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I believe it ended with your birthday at a nightclub.
It certainly did. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But now we're, fast forward through.
Now we're old. So
Now we're old,
We're all
multiple
old and mature
iterations.
6 years later.
Yeah. I'm wearing a hat now because I don't have any hair left. It's all good. But
And I don't know. I got hair growing out of my ears, so yeah, it's.
do you want to tell everybody a little bit about what
Yeah.
exactly is Creative Northern?
Yeah, and obviously that's a weird thing because it's like you got an adjective, two adjectives.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Creative Northern thing was really started during near the end of 2020 in response to kind of what we were seeing with society, and obviously we've been just super fortunate to have such a great group of people in a variety of different creative endeavors, whether it was musicians or filmmakers or writers or that kind of stuff, but they're all kind of doing their own thing and seeing like, okay, we got a problem. Society has a real problem, and we're not addressing these issues. And in some ways, as much as we were trying to address things in our work and, through some of our films and music and things like that, it didn't seem like it was going fast enough and it wasn't doing enough. And that was really bothering us. And so, we kind of said, hey, we're going to launch this new thing called Creative Northern, which is a public benefit corporation. So somewhere in between
Which I love.
normal for-profit and like a nonprofit. It's somewhere kind of in between. Like we have a specific public mission that we have to fulfill as part of that, and that one is essentially reducing poverty and lifting up voices and doing just lifting up things that need to be lifted up, and we felt very strongly about that. We believe creative work can be an important thing for raising incomes and raising voices, and so we said let's bring unite the Avengers and create Creative Northern, and so we did that. And of course, weird timing because November, in Wisconsin was, the peak for COVID-19. But we got through the winter and we're emerging and doing other projects. And now it's kind of like, how do we continue to fulfill that mission? And
that's one of the things that I love too is the idea with Creative Northern of being able to help people here in the region that we call the North, but like Milwaukee, surrounding, going out, the creatives here tend to have to go somewhere else if they want to think about a professional life, right? Like whether it's New York or Los Angeles or these different places, but in building up a ecosystem that, through a mix of maybe some of your more corporate type of work that, hey, is going to pay the bills, but then also gives opportunities to have space and money and time to be able to tell the stories that are on
the heart.
Yeah, and I mean, you've told stories that are on your heart, and there's a lot of people that are probably watching this understand that there's a narrow sort of space that they know you in the idea of tobacco harm reduction and all that, but in the conversations that we've had over the years, I mean, there's a lot of different things that you care about.
There's a lot of things I get fired up about, for sure. And it's I know I personally feel the need to make sure that things are, at least if there's things I've learned, that I tell them in a way. And unfortunately, I've almost had to be typecast, as a guy who only talks about one narrow thing. But people are hurting, and they're hurting because, and my personal belief is, when you look at a lot of the unrest, which I think I was a part of, I was unrested about this last year especially, and still even to this day there's things wrong. But when you see that stuff break into more and more I guess more and more intensity, that's as people I'm sure have seen the quote last year, riots are the voice of the unheard. I mean, I don't think that's an exact quote, but the concept is that they're not being heard, and obviously things escalate when they're not. I'd like to find ways to use the strength that we have through our all the different groups kind of pooling their resources and pooling their talent together, that we could find ways to share, ways of doing things, share knowledge, share, in some cases, even like resources to like get to places to do things, whatever that might be. But that in a lot of ways can allow people to be heard. And then when people are heard, things change. Sometimes just the change happens in being heard, as simple as that might sound. Sometimes people don't, and if they see someone on camera or that shares their voice, they feel like they've been heard. Or, but when you only talk about like 4 things, then, in some cases, news media only focus on certain things or whatever it might be. It's people just feel left out. And I think that's causing a lot of the problems we have now is we're not getting those voices out. So I see it as a massive societal problem. And then you look at like what your work with VIDA News and think like, okay, that was important. It did lift up a lot of people. And I know when you were telling me about some of the stats, millions of people watch. Yeah. What if that was broader? What if there could be more filmmakers, more people working on it, and we could open it up to more people in society, that more topics, but also more storytellers. As much as I think, you're a handsome guy, what other people could be on camera? What other things could happen? And what would that look like? And how would that work? And, having a bigger group to help with that, I think that's where I feel like it's exciting to be a part of that, because we need an outlet. There's things on our hearts, and all we do in meetings and yell at the wall and get upset. Like, what could we use that? Can we do that with our our heart, our non-time even, or even work time, depending on how this stuff goes, and so that's where I get stoked about this.
And I mean, you and I both are, we're both believers in the power of storytelling, right?
Absolutely.
And like what that can actually do to be able to shape individuals, to be able to shape, communities, to be able to shape society and the future at large. And the model of what I loved about when we first started talking about Creative Northern, right? Like the idea of building that ecosystem in a way that people can tell that story, that we can get diverse voices to be able to tell that story. Like at the end of the day, we're 2 white dudes that are sitting down and talking, and it's like, people probably have heard enough of just that. You need to have other people to do it.
Like we said at the end of the film You Don't Know Nicotine that we did, like that was, to me, this feels like this is fulfilling that call to action, or not fulfilling it necessarily, but carrying out. And
it's the next step, right?
The next step naturally isn't just to say, we need to hear more voices and we need to lift up other. Then do it. And I feel like everyone should be a part of that for sure. But like, it's hypocritical to say something like that in a movie, but then not take steps. And obviously difficult times trying to navigate this economy and the world that we're in right now. But certainly, we feel like this would be a great step forward to do that. And you don't have to make feature films all the time. That takes years to get those things done. Can you do smaller things? Can you do, but just as much impact in some cases as we've seen with the internet? Like, you don't need a feature film to make an impact, but you do need to make sure you're doing it well and you're doing it collaboratively, and that it's actually speaking for the people. That's also another thing too, getting more people involved so you're actually speaking. They're speaking versus just like one guy or whatever, or a small group speaking. Exactly.
And that's one thing that I personally am excited about when it comes to sort of how VIDA Voices, we talked about how that is actually going to work, and that idea of, wanting to make sure that it's diverse voices, both in like the subject of the story and the lens of the story, and that the person that's behind that is helping tell that, the filmmakers getting involved. That's fantastic. But then also like finding the way to make this sustainable, right?
Well, I was gonna say, like with our movie we did with You Don't Know Nicotine, we did that as a crowdfunded model, because we just said, these things are tricky topic. I mean, talking about nicotine, for Pete's sake, getting into that, like the last thing you want to do is have corporate sponsorship of that. And there's plenty of issues like that where of course there could be issues like that. You think about like any harm reduction type thing for that matter, or health things. It's like one day wine is good for you. The next day, wine is bad for you. One day, eggs kill you. One day, they're good for you. Like, what is that? And a lot of that is industry-funded stuff, which scares the crap out of me because I've seen the damage that can do.
It also just, like, it erodes the trust that people have in these messages that they're hearing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that sponsorships of health messaging has often got some interesting, weird stuff going on. Not always, but certainly it happens. If we could find a model where people could support this stuff, and obviously we're working right now to figure out ways for, getting like a nonprofit sponsor and that kind of stuff, really just separate funding from the voices, because people, individuals, when they're speaking, the last thing they need to be told is, shut up, you're some sort of corporate someone. That's not right, and that's not fair. And actually that makes the problem worse when people not only are unheard, but then they're sort of heard, but then dismissed. That's actually worse than being unheard, I think, because you're just saying, well, what you said isn't valid.
Yeah.
And so we need to find a way to simplify it so that the voices can be heard. And I think like a crowd-supported model, makes sense, or some sort of like non-involved type thing. Like if you had, I don't know, the Lions Club or something. I just I don't know. Something like that that's certainly not involved. And there'll be some topics, like dyslexia, or maybe even like justice reform, or who knows, those kind of issues, or maybe that's not as big of an issue, and I don't know, who knows, we don't know what the future will be like, but we definitely know we want to make sure that we're making the voices heard, and that means making sure that there's not conflicts.
Yeah,
that's a big part of this as far as I'm concerned. We got to do that, and that's hard, and we're gonna need people to help get involved with that, because that's the only way for it, as far as I'm concerned, in a world very skeptical of information, is reassuring people like it's just not like that, and how do we make that happen? I'm excited to give that a solid shot with our entire team. We're all stoked about it. I'm so fired up. I mean, the crew with Creative Northern is just, it's just so talented, like from top to bottom. You're talented.
Oh, thanks. But just like everybody that is involved with it, and I'm excited because this also gives us an opportunity to be able to highlight more of those people. So be on the lookout for those types of things too, because there's so many like talented, incredibly thoughtful people that we already have that are a part of this, and I know that there's going to be more and more that are
expanding that circle, because not only the voices themselves, but making sure that they have sort of that professional guidance, and like that there's like professional storytellers along the way. We think that there's tons of those folks who also need to be lifted up. People like filmmakers, or poets, or whatever the case might be, those sort of storytellers. We want to kind of have this triangle, at least the way I see it, is a triangle of the voices, the storyteller, professional, and then the crowd funded. If you can get that, I think that's a pretty sweet spot. That you're lifting up people all along the way. You're bringing people along for the journey, and I think that'll do a lot. That'll do a lot for people to make sure it's not just like I don't know, like NBC making crowdfunding. Like the money's going to people that actually could use it for their work.
Exactly.
I think that's going to be very important moving forward as well, lifting up not just voices but storytellers.
Yeah, and all of that working in concert with it. You and I have had plenty of conversations about this too. Like the importance of, I think, unsiloing some of these issues, of seeing how these things connect together. Like the idea of all of this stuff is so.
There's a lot more interconnected than people think, actually.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, when you look at stigma or shame, where they allow people to be silenced simply by how they look or how they sound or what they do, 1% of their day, like that somehow their voice doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But that actually, once you can silence people, those same things that affect them in a variety of ways can all happen to them. That's why they need to be unstigmatized and free. Their voices need to be heard, and that will fix a lot more issues than people think. This isn't just about one issue. This is about almost all the issues.
Exactly. And if you see that all coming together, I think it just, it adds that weight, right? One of my favorite sayings, a rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's like if we get all these things together, we can do that. And I'm excited to be able to jump into that. But one thing I did want to ask about too is because there's a lot of stuff that we did last year with VIDA News. There was spotlight pieces and interviews and all of that kind of stuff. Where do you see that having a home? Like, what do you think the home for all of that stuff is?
Yeah, well, the
moving
Creative
forward?
Northern team, I know for sure, wants to make sure that stuff lives on, even though this is a new project, kind of like building on or essentially utilizing the spirit of that. And those pieces shouldn't go away for sure, and so I would assume, YouTube and I think the IBEX team is looking forward to having some of those films that you did last year on there, which actually becomes a revenue source for, supporting VIDA Voices. And, the things aren't going to go away. Obviously, things will need to be reorganized and stuff like that, just because that was a lot. I mean, I don't know, you were in like 400 videos or something last year alone.
A lot of videos.
Like, it was a lot. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's one of the things that we'll have to figure out, It's like, how does that stuff all get organized? But certainly I could see those things being on IBEX and obviously YouTube and wherever else they were. I don't know that they all need to be reduced, but certainly reorganized and firmed up with topics and things like that as we get further along here.
Yeah. I'm excited for it. So I think that's all that Aaron and I actually have
For now,
right
yeah,
now,
we ran out of words.
But
Surprise.
surprise. But I'm excited. I will say, and sort of speaking for the group, the people that were all a part of VIDA News, I'm excited. It's bittersweet in thinking about things that have ended, but I think that where we're going, it's very bright, very optimistic. It's not going to be easy, but it's the work that we like to do.
Yeah, you started something, and now
Let's keep it
the
going.
next, the next chapter, the next sequel, whatever, something new, something fresh, but building on that. It's exciting.
Power
Yeah.
numbers. So
Let's do
all
it.
right, let's go. Thanks everybody. Be on the lookout. Cheers.